In a move that was a shock to literally no one following this saga, China is now banning its biggest tech companies from acquiring Nvidia's chips, specifically the H20s and the RTX Pro 6000D, both chips made specifically for the Chinese market. Okay, welcome back to RubenTek, where we have been following this dramatic saga since the beginning. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe down below. And I'm going to take you through some articles outlining what's going on. And I'm going to break down to you the lunacy of the US response to this and why we never, ever, ever, ever should have gotten to this point in the first place. Okay, let's just go ahead right away and jump into the article. And this is from Tom's Hardware. China bans its biggest tech companies from acquiring Nvidia's chips, says report. We're going to go ahead up here. The Cyberspace Administration of China, the country's top internet regulator, has reportedly banned its biggest tech companies, including ByteDance and Alibaba, from buying Nvidia's AI chips, according to the Financial Times. The CAC said that these institutions should stop testing the new RTX Pro 6000D and cancel their orders, even though several companies have already indicated their interest in purchasing tens of thousands of these GPUs. Real quick here, this is making America great. Let's cost Nvidia even more billions of dollars, right? Nvidia, an American company. Nope, making America great again. These GPUs were set to replace the H20 after it was banned, but before it was unbanned again. I will go into this later. This goes against initial reports that reception for the more affordable AI China-specific GPU was lukewarm. Instead, it turns out that central government was blocking the purchase of these graphics cards. This new ban comes just weeks after companies were directed to stop ordering H20 chips, NVIDIA H20 chips as well. Now, understand that earlier this week, China government, Beijing, had issued a I believe it was an anti-competitive lawsuit into Nvidia. So again, this is not to be unexpected. Beijing reportedly believes that homegrown AI chip makers like Huawei and Cambricon now produce chips that have comparable performance to Nvidia's China-only products. They absolutely do. And maybe even beyond that. And although Team Green might still have an advantage with the software stack, other Chinese tech giants like Tencent are pushing to build their own infrastructure to replace that. Because of these developments, China chip orders are ramping production in anticipation of the glut of orders coming from companies that need AI chips but can't purchase Nvidia products. Okay, so first of all, let's get into this. I want to address a lot of things here. I want to address first, there's so much in this article. We have to cover these things so that you can understand what is going on. Right here, set to replace the H20 after it was banned and before it was unbanned again. Okay, the US engaged in chip warfare with China, starting first with Huawei. Okay, I've covered this saga in its entirety. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here because I would be talking an hour about it, but just know that basically, as far as 8 years back, the US started out on its path to destroy Huawei. Literally destroy it through economic sanctions, export bans, and things like that. However, that has not happened. Though Huawei was hit extremely hard at first, they have turned into an absolute worldwide giant, okay, of extraordinary power and importance. And what happened was that in its attempts to stop China from being on our level in AI, the US has been going about it all wrong and preventing our best chips from reaching China. So for instance, with Nvidia, when they released the Hopper series, they could not release the true H100 and H200 series of chips. Instead, they had to release these oddly named models called the H800, because I would think that would be better, but it wasn't, and other such things. And they also decided that to work with these export controls, i.e. they can't release certain chips to China, they were going to make something a little bit better called the H20s. Now, under Biden's administration, which just strengthened. So in America, they'll tell you Biden and Trump, boy, they're different. But when it comes to China, they're exactly the same. Let me get to a larger camera here. They're exactly the same. Biden had strengthened the export controls against China, and so Nvidia had to come up with the H20s. They were specifically made for China under the guidelines listed by the US. However, what the US didn't know was that the DeepSeek moment was coming. And what was the DeepSeek moment? This DeepSeek moment was where China came out with the idea that inferencing could be used in training. Now, I don't want to get too deep into this now because, again, it'd be another half an hour episode. I've talked about this all before. But inferencing used to just be used, i.e. on the consumer side. And then training was just specifically going ahead and doing essentially, they have this process for training. I'm not going to get into too deep here. But China introduced what you could call chain of thought into training. So they would have their initial training, and then they would allow the AI to inference against itself, have a reward pattern, chain of thought, and then to go through that and come out with the best answer. And then it would train itself doing these types of things. And so inferencing, which was not considered that important before because it was just on the consumer side, and the training is what made the power of these AIs, inferencing all of a sudden became absolutely critical. And the H20s, okay, were made so that they did not train as well as the Hopper series of chips, but it just happened that with the newer architecture that they borrowed from Blackwell, okay, they actually had more inferencing power. Isn't that just ironic how that works? Than the H100 series of chips, okay? And so now all of a sudden, inferencing is a big deal. And so the Trump administration went out and they told Jensen Huang, you cannot ship the H20s, even though they were approved by the Biden administration. Okay. And Jensen immediately had to take a 4.5 to 5.5, we'll just call it $5 billion write down against Nvidia's inventory for all these H20s that were specifically made for China and could not be sold in those markets. It would be hard to sell them anywhere else because if you're somewhere else, you just get an H100 or you would get a Blackwell. Okay. And Nvidia's Jensen Huang came out, and understand a lot of people don't like Jensen, but I do. I think he's just a businessman. I think he's just out there trying to do the best business. And he came out and rightly said, if we're going to win this AI chip war, if we're going to have it, he's not in favor of it. I don't think he's in favor. I don't think he's ever said anything in favor of it, but understand he can't say anything against it. He walks a delicate line, right? You can't really go against the Trump administration. Otherwise you'll get punished. And so he said, if we're going to win it, if America's going to win it, you're not going to win it through hardware. Hardware doesn't matter as much when Huawei is only one generation, maybe 1.5 generations. They're right behind us. You're going to win it through software. And Jensen is absolutely correct. Okay. And so he was saying this, and then David Sachs, Trump's crypto czar, who also knows technology, started whispering the same things into the king's ear, and the king changed his mind. But when he changed his mind, he decided that that perhaps he decided, this is alleged from Chinese now, but it would make a lot of sense. The Chinese alleged that the H20s now had backdoors in them. Okay, and if you don't know what a backdoor is, that would allow the U.S. to surveil upon China. It would also allow them to turn the chips off remotely. And so China called Jensen in, and basically Jensen, of course, would have said, no, they don't have backdoors. But China started ordering its companies in August to stop ordering these chips, okay, which was very difficult because we talked about how Deepseek, when it first went and built its first generation AI, and the world had a Deepseek moment, that they had extremely fine level tuning within the CUDA ecosystem that they applied in order to program their AI model, and that they were having some difficulties porting this code over to the Huawei's Ascend series of chips. And the reason that you would have difficulties is, one, this code that they were writing was 100% specific to Nvidia's architecture. Okay, it was within the CUDA ecosystem, and there would have been nothing like it, obviously, in Huawei's system, which uses an entirely different architecture. Now, what we got here then is that what happened was Nvidia said, okay, the H20s, they have this inferencing. America doesn't want that. And it appears that China doesn't want our H20s either because they think there's a backdoor. So we're going to release the RTX Pro 6000D. The D's added because it's specifically for China. As you can see, it looked like there was some interest in it. However, that interest has been quashed. Okay, so I mean, this is just a nuts story. And then we come over here. And I just want to say this, that it says here, Beijing reportedly believes that homegrown chip makers like Huawei and Cambricon now produce chips that have comparable performance to NVIDIA's chip-only products, China-only products. This is absolutely true. So just to give you an example, in May, China started shipping their CM3A4. And the CM3A4 actually puts out performance that is comparable and sometimes exceeds that of Nvidia's top series NVL72, which is based on Grace Blackwell. Okay, and they did that through the networking of 384 Ascend accelerators. Each accelerator on its own from the Ascend series is not as powerful as a Blackwell. It's not as powerful as the H100. But by networking all of them together and understand that Huawei is a powerhouse in networking, okay, they were able to come up with a total solution that actually exceeds the performance of NVL's top offering, not the Hopper offering, the top offering, Grace Blackwell, the 72, i.e. 72 Blackwell chips, 36 Hopper chips, okay? But this was new to production and they couldn't ship these out fast enough, right? It takes time in order to build up the capacity to ship things like this out. But China now believes that these accelerators on their own, that you don't have to get a CM3A4, that the accelerators are coming out of Huawei, and I'm calling them accelerators, but you could also call them TPUs, you could also call them GPUs, out of Huawei and Cambricon are now comparable to the H20s and the RTX Pro 6000D. Okay. And for sure, America, this is absolutely true too. America has a advantage with the software stack. Okay. But China recognizes this, and we have seen multiple reports that such companies as Tencent are not just waiting on Huawei. So Huawei has been busy, very busy trying to build out its ecosystem as fast as possible. Okay, because understand that building the ecosystem is the most important thing. And that's what Jensen Huang was emphasizing. And I've done multiple videos on this. Okay. So basically, I've told you that it's not that Nvidia's chips are necessarily the best. They are technically the best available in the consumer market. Google has a better chip, but it's not available for sale. It's only internally through their cloud. What keeps people on Nvidia's chips, though, besides the fact that they are a little bit better in AMD's, et cetera, is the fact that they're already in the CUDA ecosystem. And so once you lock somebody into a software ecosystem, it is extremely difficult for them to get out. We call this vendor lock-in. Okay, this is just a common thing because now all of your tooling, all of your processes, everything that you do within your work, you become efficient with those tools. Okay, and this is a system from Nvidia that is locked down, i.e., is not an open system. And in fact, they take open platforms and they replace them with closed proprietary versions of their own. Okay, so there's a lot of open source libraries out there that Nvidia just goes and they replace their own version of it, right? Like CUDA Blast, all these things, CU Blast, and things like that. Okay, and so CUDA is what gives Nvidia its big advantage. And of course, Jensen Huang is saying, hey, we want the world to use American standards. Okay, and he's not just saying that because he'll sell more chips, which he absolutely would, but he's saying that because it's absolutely true, right? There's a certain point where, like, if we're all kind of close on chips, that you literally, I don't mean give it away for free, but you would want, if you're the US government, you would be like, give these chips to China at a discount. We will subsidize them. Give them to them at 20% off. We want everybody in our ecosystem because then we are dictating terms. Okay. But Beijing is not stupid. They are not stupid at all. They are the opposite of stupid. And they recognize that fact. Okay. And so that is why all these Chinese tech giants, they aren't just waiting on Nvidia. They're saying, hey, we got to have alternative paths, which is the smartest way to do it. Right? One of them will win out. So even Tencent is going to build their infrastructure to replace that. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's going to take time. They're not going to be on par with CUDA, which has been around for 20 years in a year or two, but they don't have to be on par. They just have to have something suitable for their developers to have comparable performance. It could be a little bit less, but as long as it's not like 100% less, right? If they're running 33%, I'm just making up a number, 33% slower in performance, that's not as big of a deal. Right? Because of these developments, China's chip makers are ramping production. Absolutely. And this is what Jensen Huang warned about. Okay, again, now I'm not saying this anti-China. I'm just saying if you want to do a Chinese chip war, right? Think about how intensive, capital intensive this is. Jensen Huang has told us that the development, AMD has told us the development of these AI accelerators, it's in the multiple tens of billions of dollars now. So Vera Rubin isn't $10 billion worth of research and development, it's multiple tens of billions of dollars. They need all kinds of money. And so now you're taking America and you're going to put us out of a $30 to $40 billion chip market this year, potentially a $300 billion chip market in 5 years. You're going to block us off from all of those dollars that could go towards research and development. And more importantly, if you want to fight a chip war, you're putting that money into the hands of the companies that you're literally trying to destroy. Huawei. Okay. None of this makes any sense, okay? Except for that it makes perfect sense because our politicians have zero, no zilch, no idea what they're doing. None. And I say that it's so frustrating, okay? You know, on this channel, it's hard for me. There's times on this channel where I'm like, you know, I've taken this political kind of twist where I'm talking about politics now, and I almost don't even want to talk about it because it's the most frustrating thing in the world. And I'm not a big Elon Musk fan at all, but he said, you know, you can't fix the US government. And I totally get that frustration that he has, right? Like this stuff is just insane. Right? Like if you want to do this war, I want to advise, don't do this war. It's dumb. But if you want to do this chip war, then you should be trying to get our chips in their hand so that they don't develop their own ecosystem. Nope. What we're going to do is we're going to force them to develop their own ecosystem, and then we're going to let them have all the revenue off of it. That's really smart. No, it's not. It's literally the opposite. Okay. And so it's just, sometimes, guy, I really think I just got to stop talking about it because it's so frustrating. And I don't know if I'm the proper person to bring you this kind of stuff. Sorry, that's just a personal moment here. I mean, it drives me mad. I read this stuff and it literally, it drives me it drives me crazy. Okay. So Nvidia is saying this, right? And he's just giving out the what he has to say, right? Because he wants to get back into China. So he doesn't want to piss off the Chinese government. But he also, you know, of course, he's got to kiss the ring of Trump. So he's in a very tough position. And of course, you know who America is going to blame for this, right? Who are they going to blame? China. Speaker Mike Johnson says China is straining U.S. relations with Nvidia chip ban. Okay, so he's forgetting that we banned Nvidia first from shipping chips over to China. And when I talk about this, right, China is straining U.S. relationships with Nvidia chip ban. Oh my God. Okay, so in April, America issued export guidance. Sorry, not export guys. They issued an export ban, essentially a sanction against the entire world, warning them that if they use any of Huawei's Ascend accelerators, that the U.S. could detain, imprison, and fine you. Okay, because they said that they believed that these accelerators were created with stolen U.S. technology, which they, to this day, 5 months later, have not provided one shred of evidence. How convenient to make allegations like that and provide zero evidence. And let me tell you something. They absolutely could provide evidence, right? If they truly believe that, they could have provided it in a matter of weeks, if not even quicker. They have the resources, they have the engineers, they have the talent. They would be able to do it. You come up with your own conclusion off of that. I'm not going to say out loud what I think we all realize, okay? But China is straining U.S. relationships, even though U.S. told the rest of the world, including China, if you use these chips, we can arrest you, detain you, and fine you. And you might think, well, that's horse manure. They'll never do that. All I got to say is look at the story of the Huawei princess and what happened up in Canada. The U.S. absolutely would do that, okay? And so this is mind-boggling to me. And this is why I never buy a Huawei Kirin-based phone, because it's like, I'm terrified. I've seen other US tech guys go ahead and get them. But on this ban, they actually didn't just limit it to Ascend. They said any other chip we want to put on there. And our government's still crazy. I wouldn't doubt that they would just announce out of nowhere, Kirin is based off of stolen technology, right? Because they don't need any proof to do it. That's the whole thing. They have shown that they will not provide one shred of evidence. They'll just say it. And when they say it, it's law, because they are God and they dictate the law to us, right? They dictate universal law because they are God. They don't need evidence. You just have to believe, right? And so, yeah, I mean, for me, I'll never buy because I'm terrified, I'm just like, who knows? So anyways, you might call me a coward because of that, but it's just simply what it is. I mean, I don't think I in the bottom of my heart, I don't doubt for 1 second that Kirin would be on there. Trump or whoever just have a tweet, oh, Kirin's banned now, and get everybody that's got Kirin. It's like, it could happen. So anyways, let's go back to this thing. Speaker Mike Johnson says China is straining U.S. relationships with Nvidia chip ban. We're not going to listen to him. I hate listening to this guy. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson called China an adversary. Of course, right? This is what the left and the right in America call China. It's unfortunate that we can't call them friends. After a report that the company has told the companies to stop buying, tech companies to stop buying Nvidia's artificial intelligence chips, the cyberspace, we already read that. They steal our intellectual property, Johnson told CNBC Squawk Box on Wednesday. They have no regard whatsoever for U.S. trademark law or any of the other provisions that make for fair trade agreements. It's not the fault of the United States that there are these strange relationships. That's funny. Okay, I just told you how the U.S. tried to destroy China's largest and best tech company, Huawei. Okay, I just told you how the U.S. implemented a AI chip ban against China. I just told you how the U.S. strengthened that chip ban. I just told you how the U.S. told anybody in the world that they buy chips from a Chinese company, Huawei, that they would arrest them, imprison them, and fine them. Okay, and yet when China just does what Trump did 5 months ago, i.e. ban Nvidia chips, which is what Trump did. It's literally what Trump did. Trump banned Nvidia from selling chips into China, from selling these accelerators. Just banned them all. And so China said, okay, Trump, we'll just do what you wanted to do. And now this is China as an adversary. They're the one provoking things. And the US is just an innocent angel, right? And then they steal our intellectual property. Do you think that, people don't consider this. If China was like such a stealer of intellectual property, like this claim, why would Apple set up shop in China? Why would Tesla set up shop in China? Why would so many large American companies do business in China if they just knew that everything they're going to do is going to be stolen? Probably because that's a lot of horse maneuver. Now, I'm not saying that there's no intellectual property theft between the countries, but I'm going to tell you something. It's between the two countries. Okay? Definitely. Right? We steal their technology. They steal ours. It's just what you do in this type of warfare that happens between these countries. So that's what I got for you guys today. And a surprise to, like I said, literally nobody. And last thing I want to close with is this. And this might be the most important thing I'm about to say. It's going to be a long video. If you made it to the end, you get to hear the most important part. This to me speaks extremely loudly. Okay. Why am I saying that? Because China is feeling confident enough that their chips can keep them in the AI agent space. Now, understand that with this whole war going on, everybody knows right now how important AI is going to be and the models and the agency that's going to be coming out of it. And so up until this point, I don't think that China has truly thought it could do completely without Nvidia. Okay. Otherwise, they would have done this earlier. I believe. I don't know. I don't want to question their government and their motives because, I'm a Western way of thinking. But for them to say this, okay, for them to come to this moment, because maybe you would say that they were just trying to be friendly towards us too. So maybe I should take that back. But for them to do this now, they have to feel, because they do not want to fall behind in this space. They have to feel that they are there, right? This is not a decision they're making lightly. I'm telling you right now, if they truly, honestly thought that they were going to fall behind in the AI race for agency and for models, they would not do this. That is what I'm telling you right now. So for them to do this, they absolutely know, China knows that it's going to be fine in the AI agency and model race. Okay. And that tells you a lot. I mean, right? I don't know if you can understand the importance of what I'm saying right there. They're at the point now where they're saying, we are not going to be dependent on you at all. And we're still going to be able to keep up with you. Right? That's a huge turnaround. That is, I mean, it's crazy. I think it is. I don't know if I'm explaining it well enough. Thank you very much for watching. All of you, if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so down below. Have a great day.